Basketball Australia CEO.
Thanks everyone for coming this morning. From a Basketball Australia perspective, we thought it was really important to get on the front foot really early. So we put our statement out in the wee hours of this morning, and having had the opportunity to talk to our team and our team management overnight again this morning, we've called you here this morning. We put out our statement last night. I don't intend to rehash that, but we deeply regret the incident that occurred last night. And our role in it. It's something that we don't play the game in that spirit. We had our Japan game on Friday night, a thrilling match, 1 point loss, but played in incredibly great spirit and conduct by both teams. So last night's game was anything but that. Whilst we accept our responsibility for our role in last night's incident, what we don't accept is the action whereby fans and officials actually get involved in the fray. And so you've all seen the social media where one of our players, Nathan Sobey, is being assaulted by a fan, and we've got Chris Goulding on a pack of players and officials prone on the court. And then we've also got a fan throwing a chair at one of our players. So we absolutely find that unacceptable. And whilst we'll be waiting for FIBA to provide us with their findings and sanctions, which I'm happy to talk about, that's certainly an issue that we'll be addressing with FIBA. Happy to take any questions.
How is Sobey and Goulding this morning, Anthony? How is their health after being involved in those?
Yeah, Greg, look, physically, our players are fine. They're bruised and battered. We don't have any breaks and anything like that. But really, it's the mental health of our players we're absolutely concerned about. That's something that the critical issue for us last night was making sure that our players were safely able to leave the arena.
Was there any dramas getting out of the arena with did you have to have beefed up security and with the hotel and everything else? What's happened around?
Yeah, look, we did. It was a significant issue in terms of the tension in the arena. Basketball's the #1 sport in the Philippines. Incredible passion. When we played them here, at Margaret Court Arena in February for the window, they made their fans made a great amount of noise and passion that they bring. You will have seen that, in the vision, if you were watching, athletes actually and coaches stayed on the court for a considerable amount of time because that was deemed to be the safest place for our players and coaches. We were fortunate to have the Australian Embassy officials who actually hosted the ambassador at the game, and consular officials were able to assist us greatly in getting them from the court onto the team bus and to the hotel.
Can I ask you your thoughts on Kickett's actions in the initial beginning of the incident?
Yeah, look, it's a challenging one to defend because that it was an unsavoury act. That's something that'll be addressed through FIBA's review. But our primary concern was the welfare for our players and what ensued thereafter. So, unfortunately, it's professional sport, and sometimes these things happen, which is a bit cliched of me to say. I acknowledge that, but really, where we get into a situation where the game actually, the fray actually spills off the court and gets spectators involved as well as match officials, that's the one that's the most concerning for us.
What were your initial emotions when you're seeing players pinned down under multitude of players copying a beating? Oh, look,
it was alarming. It was, absolutely alarming when you see a congregation of players at the end of the court, and you're saying, is one of our guys actually under there? As I said, I flew back from Japan and got in yesterday, so I watched it, live on TV. So I'm watching the same thing you're watching, and it was absolutely alarming to think that one of our players is surrounded by about 20 people with a significant amount of physical altercations occurring.
What fan do you expect Kickett might get, and do you expect FIBA to come down hard on the Philippines and their role in the World Cup qualification process?
Yeah, so look, I can't speculate on what the sanctions will be because that's we're actually in new territory in this regard. FIBA, our international federation, will convene a tribunal. That typically happens when we're playing in World Cups or long tournaments that go for 2 or 3 weeks, and those tribunals actually occur where players are all gathered. And it's actually quite swift to be able to do that. We're in a brand new qualification window. Our players are leaving later this afternoon to fly to various ports. So convening a tribunal for FIBA will be a little bit challenging, and it is new territory, so we're very reliant on them at the moment to set that process out, Greg.
What
Do
would
you
you like?
suspect this was orchestrated or premeditated in any way by the Philippines? There's footage on Twitter of their coach speaking. I'm not quite sure if this is what he says, but he says, hit them, put them on their asses or something. He might, it's hard to hear on that audio, but...
Yeah, look, I've seen that media speculation about those comments. Does that translate from a player taking a coach's action to be physically aggressive in our sport to actually going out and hitting and assaulting players? I find that a bit of a stretch, but yeah, it's certainly something that we'll be waiting to see what FIBA say through that investigation and those types of comments.
What kind of consequences would you like to see?
Oh, look, from our perspective, again, we're not dodging the question, but that's somewhat premature. What we need to do is make sure we get our players home, and that's what we're working on right now. We need to work through with FIBA on that interview and tribunal process to then actually determine what the outcome is. Right now, it's in the hands of FIBA.
Did you think it was disrespectful for the Philippines team to be taking selfies as a team straight after?
I thought it was pretty odd to be in a position where you've been in a major altercation and then to be, seemingly enjoying the moment. I found that very strange.
Do you think the game should have just possibly been abandoned completely?
Yeah, look, it's, we talked about my, incredibly unspectacular basketball career. You can actually play with three. But I found it extraordinary that in those circumstances, in a tinderbox environment like that the game continued with three players.
They're hosting the 2023 World Cup.
Yep.
Am I right? Anthony?
You are, Greg,
Should,
yeah.
should FIBA have a look at? The Philippines need to provide some assurances to FIBA that they can conduct that tournament safely, given the rubbish that went on last night.
I think that's absolutely no doubt that's something that the discussions between our counterparts at the PBA and FIBA will have. Is that an outcome of the tribunal and sanctions and findings? I don't know, but you can rest assured that discussion will happen. I've no doubt.
Would you feel safe sending the players back there at the moment? If nothing was to change, it was to stay status quo, would you be comfortable sending the players back?
Oh, look, we need the assurances of the PBA and FIBA, and as I said, the Australian consular officials have been outstanding. So we're certainly relying on them on sentiment and what does that actually look like, and how do we feel? When we look at any of our major international events where we go, part of our security plans, it's a key part of what we do now.
Would you consider not playing?
Look, the ramifications of not playing are significant, and so that's something you take you take really seriously. I was at Cricket Australia for many years, albeit on the commercial side, and touring nations that were war torn was something that as organisations you take really seriously. That's something that our board would determine at a future point. Our next round of qualifications, this is the end of the first round, we've qualified for the second window. We play three of the following four teams: Kazakhstan, Qatar, Iran and Iraq. Now, Iraq we don't go to. FIBA will play that in a neutral venue. There's an expectation we go to Tehran. Socceroos have similarly done that. But that's part of our security plan that we work with DFAT and consular officials. So, we need to work through what those security arrangements are. Those windows are September, November and February. So that's right around the corner for us. So that's certainly a question that we're asking. Last night's incident certainly elevates our awareness of security and what we actually need around to protect our players.
Was there any indication that this was going to happen before, during the match? Because there's various reports on Twitter. You can imagine there's a lot of chat going out there, but Aussie players were kicking, ripping down advertising boards, anything like that.
So let me address the first part. We heard the coach's comments, Filipinos coach's comments in relation to incidents in the warm-up. We absolutely refute that. It's a conversation we've had with team management. That's something that we absolutely don't believe occurred, and that will come out as part of the tribunal process that FIBA undertake. In relation to the second question that you asked, that absolutely was an incident. We had team shoot around on the day before. Floor decals, are always something that you look at. We trained, had numerous players fall heavily. Our team management undertook a course of action that we actually apologised to Philippines basketball for. We ripped the decals up. That wasn't the smartest move we've made, and so we worked through that with Philippines basketball and FIBA. And that's, you know, if we don't have the game incident, that'd be a conversation we'd be having with FIBA about that particular process. So there's no doubt that, you know, heightened the issue, but that was more from an administrator, national federation to national federation part as opposed to players.
Anthony, so you've been speaking to the management and players. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What have been their emotions when you have been speaking to them about the incident?
Oh, look, the primary concern last night, and I can't overstate this, and this is where, you know, the issue for us in player safety, you know, it's not a throwaway line. You know, we had our players and our team management, our coaches, in fear of their physical safety. So that's a fairly compelling set of circumstances that are we actually going to get out of here unscathed? So you know, again, working with consular officials to get us out, get us on the bus, get us to a team hotel. You know, there's a heightened sense of anxiety amongst the playing group and coaching staff where, you know, we want to get on our plane, which was, so I'm going to address, was always booked for straight after the game, these new qualifying windows. You know, we land, we train, we play, we fly out. So we're not rushing out in an emergency sense. There's a pre-booked flight and what we're on. But yeah, there's a pretty distressed playing group last night.
It might seem a little trivial, I guess, in the scheme of things, with the bench sort of being held back from going and supporting their teammates. What did you make of that? That vision's kind of distressing the boys.
Yeah.
Trying to go in and help.
So that then, you know, is the outcome of the number of players ejected from the game. Anytime there's a physical altercation on the court, if you leave the bench, player or officials to come onto the playing court, that's an automatic ejection. So, you know, it's a great credit to our coaching staff and our team management to actually hold back our players, and that's the result of 9 Filipinos being ejected and 3 of ours. The 3 of ours that were ejected were those involved in the fray on the court. It's a pretty challenging time for, you know, those athletes actually want to go out and, you know, support their teammates, you know, and they were physically restrained from doing so because of that ejection piece.
Is there any chance of like criminal action taken? Because some of the things we saw, you know, Sobi was being held by a security guard, seemingly being protected, and there's a still image of him being punched in the face. Also got a chair thrown in. Any chance of these going further than just FIBA?
Look, it's premature for us to comment on this stage. We want to work with FIBA on the tribunal and get that outcome, and then we'll assess our options, you know, from there. So we have briefed our lawyers, you know, on that, as you would expect us to do as a national federation on an issue like this, but that's something we'll address in the fullness of time.
How's Chris Gordon going? Like you said, mental health before. Like, what can you describe what his mental state's like? Because he's, you know, jumped on by a dozen times.
Yeah. Look, he's, you know, I haven't spoken to our athletes. I've spoken to our team management and my chairman, who's there, and they're shaken up. You know, all the players are shaken up, and Chris in particular. You know, it's this vision of Luke Longley, our NBA legend, taking up, you know, a position of an Australian wallaby, you know, clearing a mall to actually get a significant number of people off him. That's what we were dealing with. So yeah, Chris is certainly shaken up.
What kind of timeline would you expect this to?
Look, FIBA are pretty swift. There is a process in terms of tribunal, but as I said earlier, we're in new territory because it's a little bit different in terms of how player interviews will go. FIBA's regional director, David Crocker, is based out of Singapore and the Gold Coast, splits his time. He's actually here, so we're working with him at that stage on what that process looks like.
Will this put any danger in having NBA players available for these sort of things in the future?
Yeah, look, it's a good question, and you could ask the same question for, you know, our NBL athletes as well. We have really good relationships with the general management of NBA clubs, so it's a continual discussion and dialogue we have about competition windows and camps and so forth. So it's certainly something that, you know, we'll be picking up in the next couple of days with you know, the NBA clubs in general, and we've already started the discussion with the Milwaukee Bucks with their 2 athletes in the team last night.
What do you think this does for the overall branding image of basketball?
Oh look, it's a setback for us. It's a pretty dark day, you know, yesterday and then waking up tonight. You know, our sport's in terrific shape at the grassroots level. We've got record numbers playing around the country. You know, our men's and women's national league are doing fantastic things. But, you know, we're on the front page of the paper today, and you're all here because, you know, of a pretty ugly incident that happened overnight. We need to work incredibly hard to, you know, repair, you know, that image. It's critical piece for us is being here today, you know, to address these questions. It's something that we, as I said in my opening, we want to get on the front foot early. If there's a question coming through Grant, we'll be really transparent on our player return to Australia. We'll have that information for you later today, and so you'll be able to have an athlete perspective as well. You know, but we actually think that it's important that we're upfront and we talk about it. The long-term consequence, it's, you know, they're the sorts of things in terms of, you know, our actions, you know, in future games. We've got a range of FIBA qualifiers to go through, you know, September, November and February. Top 7 teams out of Asia and Oceania go to China for World Cup, and prior to World Cup we have Team USA coming here. So, you know, this is major news all over the world. If you're following social media and, you know, NBA followers, there's a lot of commentary around this. So reputationally, you know, we've taken a hit, there's no question.
Has there been any dialogue with the PBA?
Yeah, absolutely. So that happened immediately, you know, during the incident, after the game, and through the night.
What was that like? Were they apologetic or?
Yeah, look, it's something that, you know, they, I won't go into the specifics of that, but yes, they were apologetic, but, you know, equally concerned for, you know, their player welfare and their spectator welfare, which as a host, I would probably adopt the same position as them.
Some of their players have come out and said that they don't care, they have no remorse. That's pretty damning.
Look, that's you know, that's not the approach we take, and it's not my role to comment on you know, players from opposition nations. That's for the PBA to address, and, you know, whether FIBA take that into account as part of their review process, then, you know, they'll be judged by those actions through that process. Any more? Look, thanks for coming. We appreciate you coming in. As I said at the outset, we thought it was really important to get here today and address it, and thank you for your attendance. And as I said, through Grant Richardson, our media manager, will give you the information on home ports. The majority of our athletes and coaches are flying into various home ports very early tomorrow morning. We'll provide those arrangements so you can, you know, do whatever you need to do necessary to talk to our players and coaches. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.